Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started this evening. I do want to be respectful of your time, and I appreciate you coming out this evening to get some additional information about our school referendum that will appear on the ballot next Tuesday, November the 7th. We are doing some things a little bit different tonight that I want to talk about before we get into the substance of our meeting, and that is we are recording this meeting. And we will be putting the recording of this meeting out on our social media platforms as of tomorrow. So that's why I'm using the microphone. And we do have a microphone available later on in our session this afternoon, this evening, for others that would like to speak. I'd appreciate it if you would use the microphone. I'm going to ask one of our administrators to take the microphone off the stand and approach you to give you the microphone rather than you standing up and walking over to the microphone stand. So that's why we're using the microphones this evening. Again, thank you for coming. I would like to delve right into the information that we have for you. And as I already indicated to you, you need to look at the packet of information that has been placed at your table where you are sitting. Very quickly, what I want to do is go through it to make sure that you have all the pages that you need as we present the information this evening. The very first page is the 2017 referendum. What have we been able to do? And if you turn and go to the back of that page, you have an open letter from the members of our school board of school trustees that you can read at your leisure. The next page is the ballot question. And this is going to be the question that appears on the ballot next Tuesday. So we want to spend a little bit of time talking about the ballot question that you will see, and then dive into what does that question mean? And why is that question written the way it is? Then if you turn the page, on the back of the question, you will find two boxes, one that will be in green and one that's in red. Basically, if the referendum is successful on Tuesday, the items that are listed in green, we will be able to continue to do and expand and build on that due to that renewed referendum. If the referendum is not successful, then we look down at the items in red. And those are things we really don't want to talk about or dwell on, but we'll have to mention some of them during our presentation this evening. And then finally, the very last page is the revenue spending plan. What that basically means is if the referendum is renewed this coming Tuesday, how is that referendum money going to be spent by Lake Station schools? And we will go over that revenue plan in our presentation as well. So if you would go to the very first page where it says the 2017 referendum, what have we been able to do? This is quite a list of things that we have been able to accomplish in just a short 6 years. I don't want to read this entire list to you, but there are some things that I do want to point out and draw your attention. Number one on the list, 2 full-time elementary school counselors, therapists, one at each of our elementary schools starting in the school year 2017-2018. Prior to that, we had a traveling counselor that went to our elementary schools. Well, these now are permanent counselors at each of those elementaries. Item number 4, expand summer school offerings to include gifted and talented enrichment classes. Because of the referendum in 2017, we saw an enrollment in summer school of 200 students, and we have been able to maintain that number of students that have participated in summer school since then. Item number 5, a pre-K program offered at both of the elementary schools starting in 2017-2018 school year. And that program continues. And that is a wonderful program. It's a preschool program that those students that participate in that program are our feeder youngsters that go into our kindergarten program. So we house it in our elementary schools, and it has been very beneficial to our community. Number 6 is probably the most important, and that is that we have been able to continue our bus service, where we are able to pick up students in the morning, drop them off after school. That way that parents that are working in the morning have transportation issues or concerns, they rely on our school buses. And that is extremely important for not only our community, but most communities. Because of the referendum in 2017, we were able to continue funding transportation. Number 8, restored the 6th grade athletic programs offering football, volleyball, and cross country. Number 10, added Chromebooks or laptop computers for all of our students in kindergarten through 12th grade, making our school a one-to-one technology school. So each of our students rather had a Chromebook for them to use in their studies here in school, as well as taking them home for homework, project preparation, and doing the things that they needed to do to support their classwork. Item number 12, addressing safety issues in our school facilities. And this was also a part of the question in the ballot in 2017, and it's a part of the question that will appear on the ballot next Tuesday. Some of the things I want to highlight. We were able to build a secure vestibule at Bailey Elementary School. D, providing video surveillance capabilities at the elementary schools to improve school security. This is on our agenda to do for the 23-24 school year. Item E, expand video surveillance here at Edison for the same purpose, to improve school safety and security up here at Edison in the building, as well as in our campuses. That is scheduled for this current school year. Going down to G, air conditioning in the elementary schools. Prior to the referendum being approved in 2017 by our community, our elementary schools did not have air conditioning. Many times we had to call a half day of school because of the heat and the high temperatures and humidity that come to us in the months of August, September, and later in the spring. We no longer have to lose instructional time at the elementary school because we have air conditioning in our buildings. This is also a safety issue. As you get overheated in the summer and the hot temperatures and the humidity, well, so do our students, our children. So by putting air conditioning in those elementary schools, it was not only a good learning academic decision so that we don't lose instructional time, but it was also a safety concern. And I know our teachers and our students at the elementary schools have greatly enjoyed and appreciated that air conditioning in their buildings. Item 13, academic opportunities. Item A, Project Lead the Way instruction in both biomed, computers, and engineering have occurred in kindergarten through 5th grade. Project Lead the Way is also referred to as STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And we are able to provide that to our students in kindergarten through 5th grade. Many of our neighboring school districts only provide STEM instruction to their highly gifted and talented or high ability students. We do not separate our students out. All of our students in kindergarten through 5th grade participate in the STEM program. Item B, Project Lead the Way instruction in computer science are also held here at the junior high school. Again, STEM is offered to students here at Edison, 6th grade through 12th grade. Item C, and this is also one that I am most proud of that we were able to offer due to the referendum in 2017. We were able to restore the elementary art program. Prior to 2017, elementary art had been done away with when that art teacher retired. We did not have elementary art for 12 years. But in 2017, because of the referendum, we were able to bring on board an art teacher to work with our kindergarten through 5th grade students at both of our elementary schools. Item F, elementary schools continue to do spell bowl, math bowl, and science bowl academic competitions and continue to rate in the top 10 schools in their particular divisions. I think that is an accomplishment of our students and their hard work, and we have been able to continue that experience and opportunity for our elementary students because of the 2017 referendum. These are things that I've highlighted. There are some other things that are equally as important, but I don't want to take the time right now to highlight everything on that page. This packet of information you will be able to take home with you, so you will be able to look at that a little bit more at your leisure. And if you do have questions, please give me a call. Let's talk. I'd be happy to explain, answer questions, or talk with you at another time, as well as later on this evening. Now, what I'd like for you to do is turn to the page, and I want you to focus on the 2023 Operations Referendum Public Question. If you look on that page, look on the right-hand side where it says Public Question. That is going to be the question that appears on the ballot when you go to vote Tuesday, November 7th. The part that becomes confusing really is toward the end or the bottom of that question. So I want to start in the middle and read that to everyone. The property tax increase requested in this referendum was originally approved by the voters in 2017, and if extended, will increase the average property tax paid to the school corporation per year on a residence within the school corporation by 46.31%. And if extended, will increase the average property tax paid to the school corporation per year on a business property within the school corporation by 46.31%. I read that portion of the question because that is the most confusing, the most misunderstood part of the question. The General Assembly down in Indianapolis passed a law, and in that law, they said in public questions, you have to include what the average property tax increase would be, whether one really exists or not. Because our referendum is asking for the same thing that we asked for in 2017, no increase. It's 54 cents for $100 of assessed valuation. That's what we're asking for again, just to renew it. So there is no increase because of the school's referendum question. To further explain and clarify this, I have invited Mr. Sean McGill from Baker Tilly, who has worked with us as we prepared for our referendum. And I'm going to invite him up in a few moments to explain a little bit about how did they get to an average of 46.31%. I also want to thank our school board member, our school board secretary, Mr. Kevin Music, and his wife for allowing us to use his real property taxes. So we can see his assessed valuation, how his property taxes are broken down, and what then determines what he pays per month, as well as annually in a year due to the referendum. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sean McGill from Baker Tilly and have him explain some things to you. So thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Dr. Cripliver. Hi, good evening. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to present to you this evening regarding the proposed renewal, or rather continuation of the existing 54-cent operating referendum tax rate for the school corporation. I'm with tax and audit accounting firm, who also has a municipal advisory wing, which I operate out of. We're Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. We serve purely in an advisory capacity, and have a fiduciary responsibility to the school corporation. So we've worked very closely at the request of the school administration and board with the Lake County Auditor's Office to really do all this kind of background calculation work that's required to go in these new, rather admittedly confusing questions. So I prepared the background calculations behind the 46.3% increase in property taxes paid to the school corporation. So I've prepared some slides this evening that I'll review rather quickly to provide a little bit of context around that percentage, really what is actually occurring, why it's occurring, and what you as voters, community members, taxpayers can expect should the referendum be successful or fail. So with that, slide 2, please. Can we back up one? Yeah. So just to oversimplify and reiterate, since in 2017, the school corporation ran a referendum, that referendum was before the ballot question language changed. So when you went to the polls back in 2017, there was actually within the question the 54-cent tax rate that you were voting on. So when you go to the ballot box on Tuesday, that will not be there. So just to reiterate, the existing operating referendum tax rate that was approved in 2017 was for 54 cents per $100 of net assessed valuation. That same tax rate is what's on the ballot on Tuesday, 54 cents. If successful, that 54-cent rate will replace the 54-cent tax rate that's currently in existence. So there will not be a $1.08 total referendum rate. It's simply a continuation. And if successful, it would actually supersede the rate that's good for next year and be good through 2031 for an 8-year term. Barring any increases to your home's assessed value, what you paid in 2023 would be what you would pay in 2024 for the school corporation's operating referendum. If your assessed valuation increased 5%, then that tax liability going towards the school corporation's referendum would also increase 5%. A higher assessed valuation at the same tax rate means a higher tax liability. Next slide, please. So the school corporation's operating referendum tax rate is one of 3 tax rates currently on its budget order. These blue bars represent the tax rates that just about every school corporation in Indiana has. There's the operations fund and debt service fund. And then on top, we have the 54-cent operating referendum. So as you can see in 22, 23, and what we're projecting for 2024 are very consistent total school corporation tax rates at right around $2.50. I will say the 2024, that is an absolute worst case scenario based upon recent AV growth and the recent budgeting that the school corporation's done. I would actually anticipate a decrease next year in the school corporation's rate. However, unfortunately, the vast majority of you are at your circuit breaker tax cap on your property. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that definitely plays in a little bit to that 46.3%. And actually the entire reason why I'm standing here today talking to you about an operating referendum. Next slide, please. So I think Dr. Cripliver did an excellent job of reading through the question. The one thing that I will point out, because it really does kind of it took me longer than I'd care to admit for it to click. But when it did, it's this phrase that they've snuck in, paid to the school corporation. So really it looks at the school corporation's tax rate in isolation. There's an easy way to think about it, and then there's the complicated way that the state makes me calculate things. So let's talk about both of those. Next slide. Okay, this would be the complicated way. So you take the average total property tax liability of all the homestead properties in Lake Station Community Schools, which is more complicated than you might think because there's actually two separate taxing districts. And those two separate taxing districts have two entirely different total tax rates, which means that members in one taxing districts are going to experience different results than members in the other taxing district. But as far as the state's concerned, they want to look at everything on an average, and they want us to assume that there's no referendum in effect. So when we look over here, we see the average total property tax liability per year for a homestead in Lake Station Community Schools district is $1,080. That's based on an average total tax rate of $4.99 per $100 of assessed valuation. From the school corporation side of things, they're contributing $1.95 to this $4.99 total tax rate, which comes out to about 38.87%. So if we multiply, and again, I didn't come up with this calculation, this is all prescribed in state statute. You multiply the total liability by this 39%, and you arrive at $419.70. So what that means is that of this $1,080 that the average homestead is paying every year, the school corporation is receiving $420. Well, in 2017, you authorized the school corporation to levy more property taxes for the operating referendum. That 54-cent operating referendum would generate $194. So if we divide the 194 by the 419, that's where we get the 46.31, because this $194 is the amount of increased property taxes paid to the school corporation. So does that mean anything to any one of you if you're trying to, at the ballot box, figure out what this means for me? No, it does a great job of showing you what it means for the school, and I can illustrate that in this next slide a little better. So I'll go over here now. So this top box shows the amount of revenue that the school corporation would receive without the operating referendum. So we have the operations levy of about 1.3 million. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, all of you are at your circuit breaker tax caps, which means that over $1.3 million is issued out to all of you in the form of credits. Which means that the school corporation doesn't receive any property taxes for its operations fund, which is troublesome in that property taxes are the operations fund only source of revenue. Unfortunately, school corporations in Indiana, due to the way the state regulates budgets and accounting and reporting, they assign very specific revenue streams to very specific expenditures, which means that, for instance, the school corporation levied $3.2 million to make payments on its debt service. If it decided that, well, we could really use some of that money in our operations fund, that's not allowed. You can't just simply move money back and forth. Those taxes were levied specifically for the payment of debt service, and that's what the state will require those dollars be spent on. So, as we see here, based upon the state's conservative budgeting, both of these are regulated by the state in that the school corporation's not allowed to levy for anything more than they absolutely need. The operations fund can only grow by a certain percentage year over year. And then the debt service tax rate is calculated to fund whatever you need on your debt service payments and nothing more. So the school corporation should, without circuit breaker, receive $4.5 million a year in property taxes. Well, with the $1.575 million of credits issued to all the homesteads and businesses within the community, the school corporation actually receives less than $3 million a year. So There's that $3 million figure, and keep an eye on that because that appears down here as well. So now let's take a look at the school corporation's revenue with the referendum. Well, we can see the $1.3 million here is gained by the $1.3 million that's brought in from the referendum. And if we divide that 1.3 by the 3 million, we get 45%. I know I said I work with accountants, but 45%, 46%, that's pretty close. Next slide, please. All right. So I imagine many of you pay your property taxes. Until I started doing this, had never actually seen a property tax bill, so I wasn't quite sure how to read it. So if you're interested in calculating, kind of double checking some of these figures, doing your own calculations, or you just want to know how to read a tax bill, these three lines here are your gross assessed valuation of all of your property divided out based upon which classification that property falls into for purposes of the circuit breaker. Homesteads in Indiana are capped at 1% property tax liability for homesteads, which means that if you have a $100,000 homestead, the most you can pay in property taxes without a referendum is $1,000. There's a 2% property tax cap, which would be if you owned a home that was not your primary residence, or if there's long-term care facility and agricultural land would be subject to the 2%. And then 3% is essentially any other property capped at 3%. And so this would be the 1%. So this gentleman has a homestead valued at $123,500. These should rather closely align to your market value depending on how well the assessor is doing. And then farmland is brought in here. So no farmland and no 3% property. A lot of times I see $2,000, $1,500 in here in the 3%. That's generally a pole barn or some kind of shed. But then we're brought to our total gross assessed valuation. Now, it's very important to understand that gross assessed valuation, particularly for homeowners, is not the value upon which you pay taxes. You have to take out all your deductions. So if you are a homeowner and you are not receiving the homestead deduction, the supplemental deduction, and actually the mortgage deduction just went away, but they increased the standard deduction to make up for that. So if you're not receiving those deductions, please go down and stop at, what's that office? Well, you could stop at the assessor's office or the auditor's office and get your forms. But when we subtract out $75,000 of those deductions, this gentleman pays taxes on $48,000 of value. So then the total property tax rate for Lake Station Hobart taxing unit is $5.31. So if you multiply the 48,000 by the 5.3 and divide by 100, because tax rates are applied per $100 of net assessed value, you arrive at your gross property tax liability, $2,548.74. Lake County has what's called local property tax credits. It's an additional reduction to your property taxes that you receive because you pay income tax. So that's what this $330 reduction is here. And then the circuit breaker further reduces this bill by $720. And as I mentioned, this gentleman's tax bill is capped at 1% of that value, which is $1,235. Referendum liability is outside of that circuit breaker tax cap. So at $123,000 gross assessed valuation or $48,000 net assessed valuation, this gentleman's property taxes increase $260 a year for a grand total property tax bill of $1,494. Next slide, please. So bringing this back to what does the operating referendum mean for the average taxpayer? Well, without the referendum, $1,235. The referendum increases this liability by $21 a month, which represents a 21% increase. And if we look at things, as we know there's an existing operating referendum, if we look at what portion that operating referendum comprises of the average tax bill, it's 17.4% or somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on which taxing district you're talking about. But regardless, 21%, 17.4%, both well below 46.3%. So just important to understand what those percentages mean and what you're actually voting for on the ballot box. Next slide, please. If you would prefer not to use a tax calculator, if you'd like to get a ballpark idea of what you're paying for this operating referendum right now, you could find what you would believe to be the market value of your home or that gross assessed valuation. And then we would assume that you would receive those deductions that I talked about for it being your homestead, which means that this would be your net assessed valuation or the value upon which you pay taxes. And then this would be the monthly impact that you paid in 2023, which is identical to the monthly impact that you would pay in 2024, which is why we have all these zeros over here on the left-hand side. Mr. Music's assessed value was just above the average. So $108,000 is about the average value, which translates to $39,000 net assessed value. So on average, taxpayers for a homestead property are paying $17.50 a month. And that is not projected to increase, barring any fluctuations to assessed valuation. Next slide, please. The school corporation did request we prepare a tax calculator, which is available for your use on their website. So I'll just run through very briefly how to access it, how to use it. You'll go to the school corporation's website at lakes.k12.in.us. And up at the top is a referendum button on the ribbon. Go ahead and click that. And then this menu will appear and you can select the tax calculator button and this will appear. Next slide, please. So then when you do arrive at the tax calculator, the first thing you'll want to do is select your taxing district. If you're not sure which taxing district you're in, you can find your property tax bill by clicking this link there. That'll take you to the third-party software that the Lake County Treasurer's Office uses to make their property tax information public. So not only could you figure out what taxing district you're in, you could also double check our numbers. Next, you want to enter those gross assessed valuations from the property tax bill as they showed in order. So 1% property, 2% tax cap, and 3% tax cap. And then you can come down here and see how much, here's that 17.4% again, of the operating referendums represents of your total. And then finally, on the bottom, you can see both the monthly and the estimated annual investment that we would anticipate you'd be making as a result of Lake Station Community Schools operating referendum. I think that's my last slide. Yeah. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I feel like I'm starting to ramble, which is dangerous. Yes, sir.
You said that the assessed value
No.
There's a huge difference. I would encourage everybody to use our website. Just click on the assessor link, I'll bring up the assessed value. You have to guess what the fair market value is. Exactly what the assessor. As assessor property, it's a lot less than fair market value.
Absolutely.
Okay, they want me to repeat that. I just wanted to point it out that the assessed value and the fair market value is there's a large gap there. What you think your home fair market value is a lot higher than the assessed value. I would encourage everybody to go to our website and click on the assessor's link. All you have to do is type in your name, it'll pull up your property, you click on it, it tells you exactly what your assessed value is, so you don't have to guess. Because the assessed value is gonna be a lot less than what you think your fair market value is. Thank you.
That is true. Unfortunately, I just bought a house, so they're rather close, but of course. All right. Well, if anything comes to mind following the meeting, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Cripliver or other members of the administration. They know how to get in contact. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate Sean coming this evening and making this presentation as to how your taxes, as well as the average property tax increase, so it says in our referendum question, how that is calculated. What I'd like for you to remember from Sean's presentation is two things. The first thing I'd like for you to remember is where it says in the question, the average property tax increase is 46.31%. Remember, when you're figuring averages, there'll be some lower than 46.31%, and there'll be some that are higher. So the average is kind of the middle point. The 46.31% is the increase of the property taxes that you pay that will now go toward the schools. It's not an increase in property taxes. Of all the property taxes you already pay, 46.31% is paid to the schools. It's not an increase. The second thing I'd like for you to remember is on our website, go to the tax calculator. People like to see dollars and cents. They want to know, what is it going to cost me and my family and my household? Go to the Lake Station website, click on the referendum button, click on the tax calculator. Be sure to put in your assessed valuation of your home, hit enter or return, and it will show you what you pay monthly and what you pay for the year. What I'm asking our community to do is give up one pizza a month. And what you would pay for one pizza is what I'm asking you to invest in our schools. Because that's on average what it's going to come out to, a cost of a pizza. I think our students are worth that. I hope you agree. Getting back to your packet, I want to talk about some things that first I'm excited about if the referendum passes on Tuesday. Looking in your packet at the items that are highlighted in green, those are the things that we will be able to continue to do and build upon with the renewed referendum that would be approved on November 7th. Again, not reading all of them, but some important things. Transportation to and from school and to the Boys and Girls Club after school, and our late bus will be able to continue. Athletes will not have to pay to use the bus for away games. Field trip costs for the transportation will continue to be paid by the school, not individual students. Edison College and Career Readiness Coordinator, we will be able to keep that person. Elementary counselors will stay. Edison counselors will stay. High ability instruction that we do in our elementary schools. That teacher will be able to stay and continue to offer that high ability or gifted and talented program for our students. Reading coaches, they will be able to stay. In the elementary schools, music, art, physical education, STEM, will be able to remain. Most importantly, we'll be able to keep all of our teachers, all of our staff intact. We'll be able to keep all of our paraprofessionals and, in addition, hire additional instructional aides to help our students. We'll be able to keep our elementary library clerks, our elementary nurses aides. Currently, we have a nurse aide in the elementary schools. Prior to 2017's referendum, we did not have a nurse or any person of training in our elementary schools. The person we had traveled. If the referendum is not successful on Tuesday, then we look at the items that are in red. Number one, transportation to and from school, to the Boys and Girls Club after school, and the late bus will be eliminated. Students and parents will be charged for bus driver and fuel costs for field trips. Elementary counselors and Edison counselors will be laid off. Elementary high ability teacher laid off. Reading coaches at the elementaries laid off. Edison College and Career Readiness to help our seniors get prepared to go to college, laid off. Elementary specials such as art, music, physical education, STEM, those programs will be reduced. Approximately 20 teachers will be laid off. Athletes pay the transportation fees for the buses to take them to away games. Eliminate library clerks at the elementary schools. Eliminate a nurse's aide at the elementary schools. Eliminate the nurse aide at Edison. I think you get the idea. It will be devastating to our school district. Absolutely devastating. It will be paralyzing to our school district. The last thing I want to draw your attention to, and then we will be happy to take questions. On May the 8th, 2023, our school board approved a resolution to have a referendum placed on the ballot next Tuesday. In that resolution, they also had to approve a revenue spending plan. That revenue spending plan is the last page of your packet. Please look at it with me. We are asking for an operations referendum. Should we be successful on Tuesday, how will that referendum money be spent? Look at the plan. Number one, $466,104 will go directly toward transportation expenses. $332,931 will be to maintain and expand academic programs. $332,931 will be used to recruit and retain our highly qualified teachers and staff. We in Indiana are experiencing a teacher shortage. We must be able to have money to keep our highly qualified teachers and attract highly qualified teachers to our school district. Because our students come second to none, our students deserve the very best teachers and staff that we can afford. $133,173. Student safety. Number one top priority, student safety and security. $66,586 will be for other educational needs, which will be used to expand our current academic programs. That totals $1,331,725 a year. So if people tell you that the operating referendum is only going to go toward transportation, they are misinformed. The school board approved this revenue spending plan May the 8th, 2023. And this is how the referendum money is allocated and how it is used. The last comment I would like to make is I have heard that some people are under the impression that if the referendum here in Lake Station Schools passes on Tuesday, it will eliminate the tax caps that Sean talked about. The 1% cap on your home, 2% cap on rental property, businesses, 3% cap on farmland. Those tax caps or circuit breakers is embedded in the Indiana State Constitution. No election for a referendum anywhere in the state of Indiana can overturn those tax caps because they are embedded in the state constitution. So I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. I've talked a lot. I appreciate Sean coming and giving us valuable information. Remember, 46.31% is the average of money paid to the school district of your already paid property taxes. And utilize the tax calculator that we have on our website. I want to thank you for coming. I do very sincerely appreciate it. I hope I was able to give good information to help you make an informed decision on the referendum that Lake Station Schools is asking for, the operating referendum. And I encourage everyone, please go out and vote on Tuesday, November the 7th. And with that, if there are any questions or comments or suggestions, I would very much be interested in hearing those at this time. Margie. Wait. Because we're recording, I need a microphone.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment because I'm the ACC student bus driver. I pick them up here at the school at 11 every day and take them to Hammond, sit out there for 2.5 hours and eat and read and work crosswords. Then I pick them up and bring them back here by 3 o'clock to catch their buses to take them home. I have 22 students on the buses this year. These kids they're the best, and the programs there are excellent. If we don't have transportation for these kids, I don't know how many parents could afford to be taking them every day into Hammond and back, as well as coming to this school. It would make me so sad because they deserve this opportunity. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Margie.
Just a general comment, follow up, Dr. Cripliver reminded me. So there are the 1%, 2%, 3% circuit breakers that everyone in this room would be eligible for. As mentioned, if the operating referendum is successful, just the operating referendum tax rate would be exempt from those 1%, 2%, and 3% caps. There is an additional cap, which is really it's called a true circuit breaker because even the referendum isn't exempt from it. And that is if you are 65 or older. There is a 65 or older circuit breaker that is based upon the amount that your tax bill increases year over year over year. And it takes into account things like the assessed valuation of your home and your income. So those are things that I can't model because I don't know your specific tax situation, but just know if you are 65 or older, the information, the impacts discussed tonight may be higher than what you would experience.
Thank you, Sean. At your place, I have also given you a small type index card. It is written in English on one side and Spanish on the other. This is basically what I call a cheat sheet that you can take with you that basically outlines what we are looking forward to continue doing should the referendum be successful on Tuesday. There are some extra ones on that small back table. Take extra ones if you would like. Also, you will find a sticker. Proud Eagle, Lake Station Community Schools. If you peel off the back, it reveals the sticky part of it that you can put on your shirt, your jersey, your hoodie, whatever you like. I invite you to take that with you. There are also some extra ones on the back table. Take as many as you would like. Show your Eagles pride and show your pride in Lake Station Community School students who really work very hard each and every day. And I'm really proud of our students, and I'm proud of our staff and our teachers that represent our school districts and our strengths every day for our students. Kevin.
Not him this time. No. I was just wondering if you'd be willing to guarantee that if the referendum passes, school bus service will continue.
I can guarantee that.
Hi there. I am a teacher and a Lake Station resident. I do want to say that I think it's very important for our kids to have bus transportation because we are one of many schools that do not have to pay for their bus transportation. So that is a big issue for me on this referendum because I really think that our parents are not even thinking about that. They would have to start paying for bus services.
Thank you, Mr. Music.
Hello. Dr. Cripliver, can you tell us how this is not just a Lake Station issue, that how most schools in Indiana are passing a referendum? How many in Lake County and our neighboring schools have passed a referendum? It's not just Lake Station, as most schools are trying to pass a referendum. Can you give us a list possibly of who's done it, who's trying for one this election cycle, and who has in the past in Northwest Indiana?
Thank you, Greg, for that question. Yes. School districts seeking referendums is not unique to Lake Station schools. School districts here in Northwest Indiana that have successfully won a referendum, those communities such as Valparaiso Community School District, Chesterton Community School District. In fact, Chesterton has 2 referendums that their community is paying for. Munster Community Schools has successfully passed 4 referendums because the need is there at Munster Community Schools. And currently on the ballot next Tuesday across our state, there are 29 school districts that are asking for a referendum. It could be an operating referendum, such as what we are asking for. It could be a capital referendum to build or remodel schools, or it could be a safety referendum. Those funds geared specifically for school safety and security. So those are the 3 types of referendums. 29 school districts, Carmel, down by Indianapolis, for example, they are seeking a referendum. So this is not a Lake Station issue. This is a statewide issue.
Our sister school, River Forest, has a referendum. I believe Hobart has a referendum.
River Forest, our neighboring school district, yes, they had a referendum. And they have also renewed their referendum about 2 years ago. So they have that referendum. Crown Point Community Schools has a referendum. Our neighbors to the west, Gary Community Schools has a referendum. Griffith, Hanover Community Schools, Lake Central, School City of Hammond. And Hammond is also asking for 2 referendums on their ballot this coming Tuesday. Hobart, Munster that I've mentioned, Lake Ridge, Maryville, East Chicago, School City of Whiting. Whiting has a referendum on the ballot Tuesday. As I already mentioned, Hammond has 2 referendum questions on the ballot. So again, this just illustrates that this is not and Lake Station Schools issue. This is a state issue, and we have become a referendum state. Thank you for that question. Thank you, Sean.
I just wanted to come up for a moment because the tax information you saw tonight was mine. I wanted to make sure that everyone had an example of someone here living in Lake Station. As Sean said, my assessed value is slightly above average, so most people are paying less than what I'm paying. I don't think what I'm paying is unfair. And Ralph, is it possible to pull up my tax information again for me, please? While he's trying to grab that. I just wanted to say that when we're looking at mine being a little over $20, I mentioned in the school board meeting last night, one example is my Netflix bill. I mean, it's probably about 18 bucks a month. It's not the only streaming service I have either. So I'm paying more than that for streaming services. I don't think we're asking a whole lot to make sure that our kids are taken care of, our teachers are taken care of, the rest of the staff here are taken care of. Obviously, with some of this here, one thing I wanted to point out was that my property tax liability is this $1494.34. I understand this may be, your mileage may vary a little bit on this because I can't say what everyone's tax situation is. But after factoring in the tax cap of 1% and then adding the referendum back in, I'm really just paying what my original tax liability would have been without the property tax cap. And I mean, I'm with everyone else. I like to spend less money if I can, or spend more money on the things I want to spend money on. But this is really just shoring up a shortage that was created by how the tax cap was implemented and how it affects the schools. And I can tell you right now, the $20 a month, the average was what, about 17, you said? $17 a month on average is a lot less than you're going to pay if you have to take your kid to school every day and miss a half an hour of work here, or leave early to pick them up from school. It's going to be a lot harder for you to try to navigate those things. And you're going to be spending a lot more money that way. You'll be spending an awful lot more money, you know, at every turn. And if you're really that concerned about how high your tax bill is, I can assure you, one great way to lower your tax bill is to tank your home values. And to do that would be to hurt your schools as much as you would by not voting for this referendum. I can't illustrate that enough. It's good schools bring people to our city, and we have some good schools here. We have great teachers. We have great people here. And I think if we can continue the trajectory we're on, we will grab more people, bring more people in. I hear all the people wanting a grocery store, wanting a bank back, things like that. That won't happen if we don't have good schools. And we're just going to hurt the whole community if we don't continue to support our school the way we need to.
And I look at the clock, we have about 2 minutes left before the end of our program. So if there are other questions or comments people would like to make, you are certainly welcome to do that. But if not, I'll let you go a little early. Thank you again for coming. I really do appreciate it. Our administrators, Sean and myself, we will be staying behind a little bit. So if you do have a question you'd like to ask any of us, please feel free. And thank you again for coming. Take your sticker, please, wear it proudly. Take your little cheat sheet, take it with you, and wear it proudly. And thanks again for coming.